this video, I'm going to present to you the 4 basic ways I've learned to approach deck design in Mage War. I may add to this list in the future, but at the moment, this list appears comprehensive to me. It is also important to mention that deck building strategies of trading card games in general apply to Mage War. For example, deck archetypes, cost curves, when to include searchers, etc. However, what I'm going over here are the aspects of deck building that are specific to Mage War. I also hasten to add, I do not have a favorite of these 4. Depending on what I'm doing, I may go for any one of these, and none is better than the others. The result will entirely depend on your skills as a deck builder, and of course the limits of the current edition of Mage War that you're playing. As a player of Mage War, please always feel free to send me comments or suggestions. Remember that if you ever have a suggestion for Mage War, something you want included or edited in a future edition, or if you feel something is lacking in the rules, some absent mechanic you'd like to see, then please just let me know and I will take a look. You can email me or post a comment. Without further ado though, let's get into it. The first approach to deck design is choosing a functional design goal you want your deck to achieve and then trying to make it. For example, I want to make the fastest and most aggressive deck possible, or I want this deck to laugh at damage and venom tokens and also be able to close games, or I want this deck to optimize the use of the primary ability Damocles. This is actually how the deck of many threats was designed. My initial idea for this deck here was simply to make a deck where every card was an immediate threat. That was it. Once I had the basic build, I went on to refine it to support and optimize that strategy, making sure I had both reliable recovery and removal, and that it was cost efficient for the sake of tempo, and so those threats could consistently be played. Aside from serious decks, this could instead just be a troll deck made with a fun mechanic exploit to do something unexpected, but I've built a number of serious decks with this approach of a starting design goal, and I'm often surprised at how successful they are. If you think of something you think would be fun for a deck to do, try and make it. And actually some of those turned out a little more competitive than I had initially anticipated, so that was kind of fun too. That can happen. The second approach to deck design is translating from other TCGs. This works best for games like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh!, whose mechanics more align with Mage War, but I suppose you could do it with other games like Pokemon if you took a more abstract approach. What you want to do is take a deck list you like from another trading card game and see if it can be translated into Mage War. Some will not translate, whether in part or in whole, due to the fact that Mage War does not include mechanics to directly cheat cards into play or perform other actions for free. But many strategies that happen to be more well-balanced do often translate fairly well, and allow you some degree of customization you may not have found in those other games. Also, the ability to translate other strategies into Mage War will increase with each new edition that gets released, although this is not an explicit goal of design. The third approach to deck design is making an intentionally competitive build. In this approach, you will decide on a deck archetype and try to exploit game mechanics as much as possible with a deck build that suits your playstyle. Since you are not restricted to pre-made cards in Mage War, you can realize any deck archetype however you want within the provided rules. And by deck archetype, I mean either aggro, control, combo, or mid-range, or some combination/blending of those archetypes however you like. One thing to note here is that this approach to deck design can sometimes overlap with a starting design goal depending on the deck's potential to be optimized. So before we get to number 4, let's recap 1 through 3. Number 1 was choosing a design goal. Number 2 was translating from other trading card games. Number 3 was just going straight competitive, making a competitive build from the outset. And then the fourth and final approach to deck design is theme decks. In this approach, your goal is to translate some idea or fiction you enjoy into a Mage War deck. This could depict a setting, a cast of characters, a story, a joke, all of the above, etc., whatever you want. In many cases, this approach to deck design couples with the previous 3, as this is often the final step in designing a deck to give it flavor. Doing this from the outset, however, is more of a top-down approach, making the resulting strategy of the deck a secondary concern to how well you can realize the flavor of the idea through card design and deck strategy. Although you will likely, at the very least, start with an idea for which archetype the deck will be, and often after you've played it a few times, you'll do some optimizing and adjust the flavor as needed. And as a final note here, the alignments for a deck, for me, are usually chosen at the very end. I mean, sometimes I'll kind of have an idea, like if I know it's kind of an evil-themed deck, I'll try to design with that in mind, or sometimes it'll just play out that way. But usually I will choose the best alignment for the deck. I won't just choose an alignment specifically for the flavor. If I want to do that, then I'll actually try to design towards that. But we'll get into that more in part 2. For now, these are the approaches to Mage War deck design.